All right, good morning, everybody. This is so wonderful to be with you all, and look at this fantastic crew behind me of all the people that are really invested in climate resilience. We are here in the Hilltop Park in Burion's beautiful Boulevard Park neighborhood, and I want to thank our partners who are here today from EarthCorps for helping to organize this press conference. It was just great to meet with Corps members just now and to hear what brought these amazing people here to our lovely 7th District, and also just the sense of responsibility and accountability that these young people have and were telling me about in wanting to help restore our planet and bring resiliency to our land, and build connections with people as we do this work. So thank you so much for sharing that with me, all of you, and for all of that work. And we have so many partners here from nonprofit and from government working on what I believe to be one of the most important issues of our time, and that is the climate crisis. And so we're joined by Director Laura Watson from the Washington State Department of Climate Change. She is Director Watson. Of course, Burien Mayor Sofia Aragon. Thank you so much, Mayor. Appreciate your work, as well as Burien City Council member Sarah Moore, and representatives from Casa Latina, 350 Seattle, One America, the Seattle Aquarium, the Seattle chapter of the Citizens Climate Lobby, and the Duwamish River Community Coalition. So an incredible coalition of groups and individuals who are working so hard. And I am very proud to stand with all of these partners in support of my new Climate Resilience Workforce Act. This is an urgent and necessary bill that I've introduced in Congress to actively plan for climate resilience and to make bold investments in a workforce that's capable of preparing for and responding to climate change. I've spent about a year working on this bill. It was a very lengthy process with a number of organizations across the country, national and local organizations. And I'm so proud of all the work that we've done together and the attention that it has garnered, the bill has garnered nationally on CNN and in magazines, deep stories about the need for this bill and the intersectional approach we're taking to climate crisis and developing resilience. We are already living through the devastating impacts of climate change and seeing our low-income communities and communities of color really bearing the biggest share of the burden. And the question now is, what can we do? What can we do right now to build a more climate resilient future today, even as we continue to push for action and investments that ward off the worst effects of climate change? Burien identified Boulevard Park, the neighborhood that we're standing in right now, as an area where residents may experience disproportionate impacts from climate change. Climate change has already exacerbated flooding in this area, threatening human and environmental health. And EarthCorps has been an invaluable partner in building climate resilience right here and across our state. Their work on habitat restoration will help create an urban forest to mitigate flooding. And it's a perfect example of why we need the Climate Resilience Workforce Act to provide funding to community-based nonprofit organizations, to states, to counties, cities, tribal governments, and labor organizations for this work. Now, we're also just a few miles from the Lower Duwamish Waterway Superfund site, one of the most polluted rivers in our entire country. For more than a century, the toxic chemicals from wastewater, industrial facilities, and stormwater runoffs poured into the Duwamish River, endangering sea life and human health and disproportionately impacting the low-income communities and communities of color that make up the residents close to the river. I remember going out with Paulina when I was running for this office and spending time seeing the amazing work that the community was doing to really clean up the Duwamish River. The pollution of the Duwamish River just always serves as a reminder to us that climate action is an environmental justice and a social justice issue. Now, when I first started working on this bill over a year ago, I could not believe that there is currently no federal office to coordinate and plan for climate resilience, nor is there any attention paid to building an equitable workforce to rebuild our communities in the face of the disasters that we are seeing across the country. So for the first time, this bill creates an Office of Climate Resilience in the White House that would center planning, worker protection, and equity, and provide grants and resources to regional, state, local, and community-based efforts to proactively develop climate resilience action plans and work with frontline communities at the table to come up with the effective strategies that we need to achieve real resilience. But the bill also envisions something else critically important. And actually, there was a piece of it that's happening right here with this restoration project, and that is, as we work to combat the climate crisis, let's use this as an opportunity to benefit our communities and to turn these jobs of rebuilding into good jobs for those who will be most affected. My bill creates an equitable and skilled workforce with millions of good-paying union jobs centered in our most impacted communities, necessary to prepare for and respond to the effects of climate crisis and build a stronger, greener, and more resilient society. To make sure that anyone who wants a job in climate resiliency can get one, my bill also creates new workforce development programs, and it funds existing ones. Formerly and currently incarcerated individuals and undocumented immigrants play a critical role in supporting climate resilience, and it's a role that is not acknowledged across the country. From fighting wildfires to helping communities prepare for and recover from climate disasters. And yet, these individuals are facing significant barriers to employment and threats to their health and safety. So this bill, the Climate Resilience Workforce Act, removes barriers to employment in climate resilience jobs that are based on immigration status and criminal history. And the good thing about building climate resilience in our state is we are not starting from scratch, as you can see right here in Burien. Burien has been one of our cities leading the charge on this important issue. It adopted a climate action plan in November of last year that will reduce greenhouse gas emissions and increase the city's ability to further respond to future climate impacts. And I'm very grateful to Mayor Argonne and the Burien City Council for their leadership. And I know too that Director Watson from the Department of Ecology at the state level is working hard to start to coordinate efforts around climate resilience at the state level. And we look forward to seeing whether ideas in this bill can be taken up not only here in Washington State, but maybe we could serve as a pilot for national leadership around the country. So there's a lot to do to make sure that we're prepared for climate change and weather-fueled events. Climate disasters are becoming more deadly, more costly, and more frequent. We want our communities to be safe. We want our infrastructure to be able to withstand their impacts, and we are committed to doing everything we can to build a more climate resilient society. And I'm not going to stop fighting for that as long as I am here in Congress. So now let me turn it over to some of the partners that are joining me today to talk about the impact that the legislation will have on our communities and states. And we're going to start off by introducing, and I'm so proud to do this, and thank you so much for your work, Evelyn Andrade, the Executive Director of EarthCorps, to speak first. Evelyn?
I am the new Executive Director at EarthCorps. I want to thank the Congresswoman for inviting us to be here today to highlight our work on climate resilience and for introducing this important bill. EarthCorps is an environmental leadership development and green jobs training program for young adults from across the country. With our core program, we are cultivating the energy of young leaders to push the climate justice movement forward, building partnerships with low-income communities and communities of color to ensure that climate resilience and restoration jobs are accessible to all. We know that the climate crisis is disproportionately impacting low-income communities, communities of color, tribal and indigenous communities, those who have contributed at least to the problem. There's a dire need to center the communities most impacted by the crisis, including the work that EarthCorps does in our own region, and this bill does just that by supporting and creating millions of jobs that prioritize frontline community members. As someone with siblings who have been deeply impacted by our incarceration and immigration system, it's inspiring to see our Congresswoman introduce a bill that removes barriers for employment for individuals that have criminal records and our immigrant workers. EarthCorps has long recognized the benefits of investing in a skilled workforce that supports climate action. It's our mission, you know. Similarly, the Climate Resilience Workforce Act will invest in a workforce ready to respond to the climate crisis while centering the communities most impacted. EarthCorps empowers young leaders who are not only creating more resilient communities today, but who also go on to have long-lasting impact and careers in creating more equitable, sustainable, and resilient communities. Increasing funding and investing in this workforce has never been more important. The work our Corps members are doing here today is a perfect example of a climate resilience project that this bill will help fund. The work our crew is doing here today is going to reduce flooding in the Boulevard Park neighborhood. And we know that restoring work like this and mitigation for flooding is going to be critical to our region's future as sea levels continue to rise and as storms continue to increase in intensity. This bill is critical to ensuring that work like ours can continue and will guarantee that our most vulnerable communities are prioritized as we fight the climate crisis. And we are excited to stand with Congresswoman Jayapal in supporting this bill in this important and pivotal moment. Thank you so much. Now I would like to introduce Laura Watson, the Director of the Washington State Department of Ecology. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Jayapal, for inviting me to join you today. And thank you, EarthCorps, for hosting this event. It's just so inspiring, just fabulous, the work that you all do. It's really an honor to be here with all of you, to be working on solutions to some of the most daunting climate challenges of our time. I've talked with people across the state who are working to advance climate resiliency. And it's people and work like this that fill me with a hope and a belief that we can meet these challenges. I believe in our ability to innovate, to invest, to imagine. Together we can find ways to protect our communities and our natural resources. Congresswoman Jayapal knows that to meet these challenges, we need strong partnership with the federal government. Climate resiliency is not just a state responsibility, it's not just a local responsibility, and it's not just a federal responsibility. We need all levels of government working together to meet these challenges head on. Here in Washington, we already know the risks and impacts of a changing climate. Every summer, we're inundated with wildfires and harmful smoke, not just in the Methow Valley, which had the worst air quality for weeks on end last summer, but that smoke comes over here to Western Washington as well. And we have to advise people to stay inside and not go outside and breathe the air. Every winter, floods threaten our communities. Just a few months ago, the Nooksack River flooded, forcing people out of homes, millions of dollars of damage. We know the cost of these climate emergencies fall heavily on those most at risk, either because of income, health, lack of opportunity, or all of the above. As we work toward climate resiliency, we have to ensure that we are delivering climate justice so that those who are burdened with these disproportionate impacts are able to respond and adapt and recover. Investments like the Climate Resiliency Workforce Act are necessary. As the future draws nearer, having a trained workforce to address climate resiliency will be ever more important. Communities most impacted by climate change must be reflected in that workforce so that those communities directly benefit from the work. I continue to be so grateful to leaders like Congresswoman Jayapal who have the vision to make these investments. Ecology stands ready to meet the challenges ahead with your partnership, with all of your partnership. Well, thank you, and now I'd like to turn it over to Silvia Gonzalez with Women Without Borders, the lead coordinator at Casa Latina.
Speaking her native Spanish, and I'm going to translate for her.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Silvia González, soy trabajadora del hogar y formo parte de la organización de Casa Latina en Seattle. También soy parte de la Comisión de Trabajadoras del Hogar de la ciudad de Seattle. Estoy honrada de apoyar esta legislación y el trabajo tan importante que la congresista Jayapal ha realizado por tantos años.
Good afternoon. My name is Silvia Gonzalez. I am a domestic worker and I am a member of Casa Latina. I was also appointed by the Mayor of Seattle to the Domestic Workers Standards Board. I am honored to support this legislation and the important work Congresswoman Jayapal has done for so many years.
Hace un tiempo, cuando empecé a escuchar del cambio climático, no entendía cómo eso afectaba a mi comunidad, pero ahora me queda claro. Recuerdo cuando vivía en mi pueblo, en México, veía y escuchaba a las personas que tenían tierras para cosechar, que esas tierras ya no producían como antes. Y esos resultados son muchas veces los motivos por qué estas personas inmigren a buscar una mejor vida.
Some time ago, when I started hearing about climate change, I did not understand how it affected my community. But now it is clear to me. It reminds me of when I lived in my pueblo in Mexico. I saw and listened to the people who had land to harvest. Those lands no longer produce the same as before. In consequence, the lack of food becomes one of the many reasons why people migrate in search for a better life.
En este país y alrededor del mundo, el cambio climático afecta desproporcionadamente a las comunidades de bajos ingresos, las comunidades de color, las comunidades negras, las comunidades indígenas y también a los inmigrantes indocumentados que desempeñan un papel fundamental en el apoyo de la resiliencia climática al combatir los incendios forestales y ayudar a las comunidades a prepararse y a recuperarse del cambio climático, pero todos ellos enfrentan barreras significativas para el empleo y amenazas a su salud y seguridad.
In this country and around the world, climate change disproportionately affects low-income communities, communities of color, Black communities, indigenous communities, and also undocumented immigrants, who play a critical role in supporting climate resilience by fighting wildfires and helping communities prepare for and recover from climate change, while they all face significant barriers to employment and threats to their health and safety.
Estoy aquí por la conexión de la Ley de Fuerza Laboral de Resiliencia Climática con la contribución de la comunidad de trabajadores esenciales. En este mundo, esto es mi historia. Yo soy una trabajadora esencial. De este tipo de legislación depende mi vida, el futuro de mi familia, y estar aquí hoy compartiendo mi punto de vista es un honor y es una responsabilidad para mí. Nosotros somos los trabajadores esenciales, como los trabajadores del campo en Tri-City, que solo el verano pasado trabajaron a altas temperaturas, arriesgando su vida para crecer nuestros alimentos, o como los jornaleros que reconstruyeron poblaciones completas destruidas por los incendios en California y Oregon.
I am here because the connection of the Climate Resilience Workforce Act to the contribution to the essential worker communities is my story. I am an essential worker. My life and the future of my family depend on this type of legislation. And being here today sharing my point of view is an honor and a responsibility for me. We are the essential workers, like the farm workers in the Tri-Cities who last summer harvested our lands in high temperatures, risking their lives to grow our food. Or like the day laborers who rebuilt entire towns destroyed by the California and Oregon by the fires.
Nosotros, las personas de color, somos las más afectadas con los cambios climáticos y las ciudades devastadas por los huracanes, incendios o tornados. Los trabajadores del hogar nos quedamos sin trabajo, sin ningún ingreso y sobre todo devastados a nivel emocional. Si nosotros estamos mal, esto afecta a toda la familia. Es un círculo vicioso. Afecta a la economía personal, familiar y por consecuencia la economía nacional.
We people of color are the most affected. These climate changes and cities devastated by hurricanes, fires or tornadoes cause in loss of work and opportunities for domestic workers. We are left without any income and above all, emotionally devastated. If we are struggling, this affects the whole family. It is a vicious cycle. It affects the personal and family economy and consequently the national economy.
Es por eso que es tan importante que esta legislación proporcione la creación de una comisión de trabajadores de resiliencia climática dentro del Departamento de Trabajo y autorice a esta comisión a identificar y recomendar procedimientos y políticas que permitan una mayor protección para los trabajadores de resiliencia climática.
This is why it's so important that this legislation proposes the creation of a Climate Resilience Workers Commission within the Department of Labor, and empowers this commission to identify and recommend procedures and policies that would allow greater protection for climate resilience workers.
La contribución que ya está dando la comunidad en los diferentes trabajos como Care Economy, agricultura y reconstrucción merece ser reconocida por todas sus aportaciones al país, y uno de esos reconocimientos puede ser, como lo menciona esta legislación, eliminar obstáculos a la inmigración. Eso requiere que el secretario de Seguridad Nacional proporcione estatus y autorización de empleo a inmigrantes que buscan empleo o capacitación en el sector de resiliencia climática.
The contributions that the community is already giving in different jobs, such as the care economy, agriculture, and reconstruction, deserves to be recognized for all its contributions to this country. One of those recognitions can be, as stated in this legislation, to eliminate obstacles to immigration. Requires that the Secretary provide status and employment authorization to an immigrant seeking employment or training in the climate resilience sector.
Cuando reconocemos el valor que nuestro trabajo trae para todos, estamos reconociendo nuestra humanidad y también que dependemos de la resiliencia de nosotros como trabajadores para sostener el mundo. También, si esta legislación como esta se hace oficial, estamos fortaleciendo la resiliencia no solo del ambiente que nos protege, sino de todos nosotros que a través de los servicios como trabajo de construcción, limpieza y creciendo nuestra comida, hacen posible la sobrevivencia de nuestros pueblos, nuestros condados y nuestras ciudades.
When we recognize the value that the work brings to everyone, we are recognizing our humanity, and also that we depend on the resilience of workers to sustain this world. If legislation like this becomes official, we are strengthening the resilience not only of the environment that protects us, but to all of us, who through services such as construction work, cleaning, and growing our food, make survival possible for everyone living in our towns, our counties, and our cities.
Gracias por la invitación y gracias, representante Jayapal, por su continua lucha por los derechos de los trabajadores y de todos los inmigrantes.
Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for Congresswoman Jayapal for your continued fight for the rights of workers and immigrants.
Thank you. And I would like to introduce Emily Johnson.
We're happy to take a couple of questions if we have time for that for any of our speakers. So if anyone has any questions, we'll take them now.
Well, I'm hoping you'll talk a little more about the value of these neighborhood projects as we sort of chip away at the things we need to fix and restore.
Yes. So the value of the neighborhood projects are multifold, right? At the one level, it is really about this is the place at the neighborhood level, at the community level, where you see the impact. And the more we can have innovative projects like what's happening behind us, the more cities plan in the way that Burien has planned, the more that our state is able to coordinate climate resilience efforts, we build a more sustainable network of projects across the country. And that is the work that we're hoping to really be able to support through this grant, is more of that intentional planning, more of those intentional projects at the community level that get people involved from the community. Just listening to the young people that I was talking to talk about why they came here from all over the country, by the way, right? Pennsylvania, California, and what was the last? Massachusetts, yes. They come here because this is a chance for young people to learn about how to develop these resilience efforts in their own communities, and also to build the skills for really good paying jobs. So I think these are the kinds of projects we want to encourage, because they are the ones that can get people in the frontline communities, as you heard from Casa Latina, from the Duwamish. These are the folks that are seeing the impacts and want to be working to help their communities be at the center of those efforts.
And do you feel like your bill will help grow these number of these projects exponentially?
Absolutely, exponentially. And also just want to emphasize again the intersectional approach. You know, I think of taking on climate change as being a project of jobs, justice, and decarbonization. It's sort of all of those things together. And that's what our bill does, is it's focused on building good jobs, working towards justice, and decarbonizing and building a more resilient planet. Anybody else? All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for being here. Really